thinking about this question quite a lot since we decided to set up this conversation, and I have thought about quitting in certain ways, and um, and actually, as I've mentioned to you, I've listened to a number of these conversations, and so a couple of your guests have talked about this. Like, there have definitely been ways that for me, the sort of the art world aspects of this reality at times has been challenging or frustrating, and there are moments where that has felt really exhausting and kind of overwhelming, perhaps, and really not aligning at times with maybe why I'm an artist, paradoxically. I mean, I think we all feel that way sometimes. Um, so I think that there have been those aspects for me as an artist, but I have not thought about stopping making art. Um, and honestly, as I was thinking about this question, I've been asking myself why. Like, why haven't I thought of that? Because because I've thought, I mean, I think it's like the one kind of constant for me in a way in my life. And I've dabbled in a lot of different things, but for some reason, art has just remained such a fixture.
Yeah.
And, you know, one of the reasons I was excited to talk to you, and this kind of relates, I think, to what I'm going to say, is that I've gotten older. I've realized that what has been so important for me about making art has been how it gets me out of my head and how it gets me out of just kind of relentless thinking in ways that, for me at least, are not always helpful. And it really gets me into my body. And so there's a kind of groundedness that happens, and for me with making art, that offers a kind of spaciousness that it's like I don't really get it anywhere else except through making. And I mean, we were just chatting a little bit, like I've got this sort of day job right now that's been so consuming and has required that I be in front of a screen a lot, like more than I ever have in my life. And I feel as though I'm like really right now kind of like screen scattered or something. Like, there's this way in which, like, the inundation of screens and being in front of one, and in a way feeling like I'm so beholden to that technology, I just literally feel at times like it's like sort of fractured my interior a bit. And so, like, this morning, actually, I was in my studio, and I've in the last, since the start of June, I've been committed to making these like daily collages, just as a kind of way to the day in the studio. And I can almost like track over the course of those collages how things just really shift in my being, like in my brain almost. Well, absolutely in my brain. But it's like I slow down or something. You know, there's a kind of calming, for sure, and it is just this negotiation and this consideration of material and surface. So it's like it's another surface in a way, but it's this very palpable surface, you know. And I think about that with your work too, like this kind of material intelligence that also, for me, in my own family history, has such a long history, really. And so maybe that's part of it too. It's like this work, and you know, is so essential to who I am, because it's this connection to the past, and it connects me to, I think, so many women who have really informed who I am in my own family, but also because it's like the way that I can best be in this world if I'm active in the studio, if I'm literally making things.
Yeah. That is so fascinating, because I think from the outside, non-artists think that when we're in here, whatever the studio looks like, that we go into ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
I think what you said was like, I get out of my head, What I feel too is, of course, we're thinking about making formal moves or just material shifts, whatever we're doing, but it does, to me, it's a relationship to time and
Yes.
material, like, and my body, but it's
Yes.
also how working with objects, like it takes time to open and close scissors, and like there's
Yes.
just a way of like, well, I can't just, I need spaces where I make something that can't, I call it art, but whatever that is, whether it's like a little like rune or whatever that is for people. But I think it's the way my body and brain and spirit kind of empty into time, into
Yeah.
which,
Love that.
yeah.
And that resonates for me for sure. I mean, I think in time that in a way then feels as though it opens up, and that being such a contrast again to like this sense of time where I feel like we get sucked into and fold in on ourselves when we're like,
Yeah.
again, in front of a screen for as many hours as often sometimes we have to be with these other jobs. But so that for me as well. And I've said that to students at times, like, just be aware of when are you opening up and when are you closing in, and recognize that kind of sensation in yourself. And for me, that is very physical, very bodily. It's really not it's not so much an analytical pursuit, which is funny because I'm within academia in some ways, and have always really kind of struggled actually with the kind of hyper focus or on certain ways of being, sort of analytical ways as being referenced in a way. And I think that, making art through the body, through a kind of attentiveness to material and physicality and those kinds of nuances is another way of thinking.
Hmm. I love that you said, because of course these questions are softballs, and then it's really all the questions and qualifiers that it brings up. But I love that you said, why haven't I thought of quitting? So first defining like what that is, and then like why not? I think that a lot too. Like
Yeah.
the why of what I think having community around us is huge. So whether that's an academic community within art or a partner who's an artist or not, mine isn't, but yeah, and that all of it's part of doing this thing, you know. I
Yeah.
think I think there's also just this culture of like get in there and clock in the hours and 10,000 hours, and I am certainly, you are too. We are people who just do it when we don't feel like it. But there's like a slippage in language where it's like it's also okay to rest. It's also okay to like let off the gas.
Yeah.
It's we don't hear that enough, I think.
I think that's true. Well, and when you say that, for me, that aligns with the aspect of this making art that is, it's just ever more than connected to the kind of professional pursuits. It's a kind of inquiry that I've had the pleasure, I mean, and I use that word very pointedly, the pleasure of being immersed within for so long. And so to pursue these questions or interests for as long as we both have is an immense privilege,
Yes.
joy, I mean, profound delight. And I mean, yeah, and it also makes you understand that the thing that you're working on right now or today has legs that go decades back, and so to be amidst that, and then also to see that in other artists, because certainly I see that in your work, and then of course the ways that the work intersects, across time and across our studios, and all of
Yeah.
that is really fascinating.
Yeah. One of the guests said it's like the best container for a play date for adults, a studio visit. It's like
Yes. Yes.
Good. Do you did you ever have a time when you uh thought about doing something else, like, or did you have a vocation where your parents like, Barbara, you should be a lawyer or whatever?
My parents were interesting people. They are interesting people. I mean, they were educators, and uh, you know, two of their three children became artists. My brother went into theater. I went into art, and they themselves have made some atypical choices in the trajectory of their own life, and for some reason they didn't worry. And I you know, maybe they worried inwardly. I should ask them that, actually, but they didn't let on to me, which was a good strategy. Because
Hmm.
then I didn't pick up on it. And um but I you know, I kind of just never stopped. I mean, you know, I think like you took art lessons when I was younger and just learned how to draw really realistically, and that's always the kind of gateway to everything else. But I mean, it's funny, um, I've thought of late though that if, if like, what else would I do? Like I have this, so, and so during the pandemic, I had this moment where, you know, everything of course went online, including my yoga classes. And so it allowed me to take classes with this teacher who I had had some classes with her in person in Pennsylvania and just loved her. Everything went online, so I could start studying with her online. And she offered a yoga teacher training during the pandemic, and I signed up for it and did it. And that was this, I loved it so much. I loved it so much. And it was this thing that felt so not me, like not something, because I've never been, aside, here I am telling all this stuff about like how art is so physical, but I've never been athletic. I've never, I've always sort of like, I always kind of like, you know, sort of hovered in the background in gym class and all of that. So like any kind of physical pursuit was never something that I really thought about. But I loved that. And I've thought like if there was space and time, and I would go deeper into that study. And
Mm.
I mean, I love teaching, and so I could imagine that being something that I could imagine being a yoga teacher, you know, in another time and space perhaps. And actually that dovetailing pretty perfectly with painting. Like, and that was because I think that was part of it, is that we would have these conversations and she would say things that I would be, you know, I learned that, you know, this sort of wisdom that she was sharing through decades of making paintings. You know,
Hmm.
I mean, it's like, and so again, those like moments of when that kind of wisdom comes together from lots of different places.